In today's business world, change is the only constant, and mastering transformation is the ultimate key to success. Welcome to Shift and Thrive. I'm your host, Natalie Nathanson. Each week, we'll bring you conversations with CEOs who delve into how they successfully drove critical change in their organization. This show is sponsored by Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service B2B marketing agency. I am really looking forward to speaking with today's guest. He is a change agent in technology and digital transformation, having spent over 24 years in the field. His expertise has gotten him featured in a range of publications, including Inc. magazine and CIO Bulletin, where he was recognized as a top 50 innovator of 2021. He was also named in the top 10 best CEOs to follow in 2023 by Inc. magazine. With a career trajectory starting as a developer, growing into a CIO role, and multiple other executive roles, he now sits on the board of multiple companies and is the CEO of the modern technology consultancy IS Outsource. Naveen Rajkumar, welcome to the show.
Natalie, thanks for having me on the podcast. I look forward to this conversation.
Thank you. Same here. So Naveen, we're talking about driving transformation. Can you tell me what is the biggest misconception out there about successfully driving significant change?
Yeah, change is a word that brings out a lot of emotions, right? And usually that's because people tend to believe change cannot be win-win. There's always a winning party and there's a losing party to a change. I think that's the biggest misconception out there. I believe change can be a win-win-win, especially in the context of business, because when I think about a business, there are three constituents. There are the shareholders, there are the clients, and the team members. And I believe if change is implemented well, the shareholders can win, clients can win, and team members can win as well. So the way I think about that, Natalie, is as we think about a three-legged stool, I think about strategy, clients, and your team as three parts of that stool. Okay. The biggest job of leaders is to clarify on strategy. Every company has a strategy. Some leaders do a fantastic job of clarifying the strategy so that everybody understands it and all these constituents are aligned on the strategy. Whereas some leaders make strategy really vague and opaque and not understandable. If we do a good job painting a North Star and repeating that every single time, I think strategy can become clear to all the shareholders. And then you follow that up with a client-centric culture, a laser focus on delighting your clients. I believe will align people around that. And then you don't compromise a laser focus on treating your team members well. Because I think a lot of leaders believe that you need to compromise on one or the other to have a successful business. I strongly believe that you can have a team-centric culture and a client-centric culture where strategy can get automatically executed. I believe that's the biggest misconception out there.
Thank you. There's a lot in what you just said. I would love to unpack that a bit, but I really like the message that really the value needs to come from all three of those components.
Yep.
So starting with the strategy, I want to hear a little bit from you. How do you view the right way to do that?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. 3 years back, I joined IS Outsource. Now, IS Outsource has been in business for more than 30 years. A fantastic business, had already served over 2,000 clients over a 30-year period, was known for its client centricity, and the company was known as a managed service provider, an MSP. Now, what we wanted to do was to elevate the company into a strategic level rather than be known as a tactical MSP. So we came up with a strategy statement that said we want to be a modern technology consulting company. And we said that is our North Star statement. Everything we do in this business in the coming years would be centered on making us a modern technology consulting company. So when we said that, there were a lot of questions. People asked, what do you mean modern? What do you mean consulting? What do you mean technology? Is it IT? Is it IT++? Clarify, right? So I think that's where strategy starts, is you put out a North Star statement, which is very simple to understand, and then you start double-clicking into each aspect. What is modern? How do we become modern? Do clients see us as modern? Do our team members see us as modern? Then you think about technology and how technology can be driving digital innovation in a business, in a client. And then we give them examples. Think about a small hospital that needs to scale. How does technology drive change in a hospital? How does technology drive change in a construction company? How does technology drive change in a law firm? It's once you start telling stories and mapping the impact of technology to business success, it starts clicking in people's minds, right? So I believe that's the first job of a CEO and any leader is to define a clear strategy statement and then double click into each aspect and clarify that. So now we think about the story here in 3 years. So we established that statement. And then people said, why do we want to do that? And then we said, okay, it's all about purpose driven leadership. It's all about making an impact to the world we live in. And then people said, how does technology make an impact to the world we live in? Unless you're disrupting with something, some new technology that changes people's lives. And then we talked about the small mom and pop shop that depends on technology to survive, forget thriving through a pandemic, for example, and how IS Outsource not just helps them keeps their door open, but gets customers through different channels to drive new revenue, to be more profitable, to 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 ward off any kind of cybersecurity attacks. And then it starts forming that mindset in people that our work really impacts our clients. And by impacting the small and medium businesses in our community, we help them keep their doors open. They create jobs, local communities thrive, and that's how the world becomes a better place. So changing, just a change from being an MSP to a modern technology consulting company can make a positive impact into the world that we live in. And that's how we did this whole change process.
I think that's fantastic. And I love how you're bringing it, not only the clear and succinct messages to the team about what is the strategy and how you define the language used in that, but then bringing the examples of what this means, how this helps our clients, and especially in a case where you are essentially helping clients transform their own technology profile is really helping them understand that.
Oh, yes. Yeah, because a lot of times we take for granted that people need that clarity. We assume people have that clarity in thought process, and they don't. Because you're closer to the situation than most people are. It's our job to clarify that and communicate that at every possible instance.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think especially different people on the team, depending on their role and where they sit within the organization, they might not have that full picture of how all the different pieces of your company's support have impacted them. I know in our world, in marketing, you can be focused on sending out individual campaigns and things of that nature, but then realize that in aggregate, all of that support might help a company launch a new offering into the market, enter a new market segment, right? There's some support kind of M&A activity, but taking all those individual pieces that need to come together and then looking at the overall impact that drives.
Absolutely. And it's not just the team members, Natalie, it's also our clients, right? Because when I meet our clients for our partnership review meetings, my first slide is typically our mission and vision slide. And I tell them this mission and vision statement just doesn't live on a wall or on a plaque in our office. This is live. This has taken a life of its own. And let me explain why. And when I explain the why behind the what we do, our clients sit up and take notice. Because our messaging is that we are there for them. We are there to make them successful. And when such businesses become successful, the world is a better place. We keep repeating that. And clients love hearing that.
For sure. For sure. And that's a great segue into the second point that you made about creating that client-centric culture. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the things that you've done at the company to do that?
Yeah, like I mentioned, when I joined, the company was a very client-centric company. That's one of the reasons I took the job is because the people I spoke to, they were just amazing in terms of their client focus. Now, what we've done, Natalie, as you can imagine, when a company grows, and we've been growing very fast, it's hard to sustain that kind of a culture when you're adding a bunch of new people to the team and you're constantly thinking about new offerings. It's easy to take your eyes off the clients. So we do a great job repeating the messaging in all of our team meetings, all of our company meetings. We tell stories. We track something called NPS, Net Promoter Score, that it's sitting on one of my monitors in my office. It's constantly refreshing. So anytime a feedback comes in from a client, I know that within 10 seconds. And people know that in the next few minutes if something went wrong. That kind of an urgency towards listening to clients and their feedback and acting with urgency, I think people have seen that as just a normal thing in this business. So at the end of every week, we send out a weekly newsletter to our team, and the weekly newsletter has feedback from clients in it. All the feedback that we've gotten in the week, good, bad, ugly, we talk about it, right? So by putting this front and center in all aspects of communication with our team, we emphasize that we are here for our clients, and then we empower them to make the right decision. Because a culture that drives client-centric messaging is one thing, but if team members don't feel empowered to act in a way that drives client service, then there's a disconnect, right? So when our frontline engineers, technicians pick up a phone call, they have a smile on their face, and it is seen, it is felt on the other end of the phone call, right? So we are very intentional about our brand tone and how we come across to our clients in every interaction. But it's an ongoing process, right? That, like I said, we keep adding new people, and we want to make sure that the IS Outsource brand is not about 2 or 3 people. It's just in the culture.
Yes, yes. And I love that you used the word empower there, empowering the team to make the right decisions. You gave an example with the engineers. I'm interested to hear, are there any other kind of mechanisms that you've put in place or examples of how that's shown up for you?
Yeah, so we learn from the mistakes we make, right? We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time, and we have a culture where it's okay to talk about mistakes. So when there is a client who um, has a complaint or is upset about a certain thing they saw in a team member in terms of an interaction, we talk about it. We don't name the individual, we don't name the client, but we take an example and say, how could we have done this better? So it's being very intentional in taking examples of things we do well, as well as mistakes we make, and learning from that constantly. And that's one tool we've put in place that's really worked.
Yeah, that's a great area. And I think that dovetails nicely into kind of your team culture and environment. And so let's talk about that third leg of the stool that you have around kind of the team and treating them well. Can you talk about what that's looked like for you?
Oh yeah, that's who I am as a leader. I've always believed in servant leadership. I believe in surrounding myself with people smarter than myself, because that's the only way to grow. And a lot of that comes with the realization that people are not just a number. You might be 100 people, you might be 200, 500 people, but each person is valuable in the business. So we talk about a culture where every single person is heard, respected, and we have a culture where they feel included in all things. We talk about transparency quite a bit. So we have feedback channels where people can feel free to express anything about any aspect of their job in an anonymous format, and that lands on my inbox within few seconds of them submitting it. I don't really want to know who submitted what, but I really want to know what we can do better for our team, and we address that. We address that in a weekly setting, in our quarterly team meetings, in our by twice a quarter all hands town hall kind of settings. That culture around transparency and accountability, where me and the leaders go in front of the team and we say, hey, we said we will do this, we could not, and here's why, and here's what the new date is. Taking accountability for mistakes you make and delays that have happened drives that culture. Some of the things we talk about as culture pillars, Natalie, are team is greater than an individual. Especially as you're growing, the concept of teamwork and not individual work is something that we emphasize. Systems are greater than individual heroics, because when you're small, you can survive by just some heroes pulling you through. But as you grow, it's very hard to just keep that as a part of your strategy. You need systems. So systems are greater than individual heroics. Having a growth mindset and leaning into change. As we think about team culture, we coach our people to think about how their mindset can shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, and coach them through that, and how it can be a win-win-win for all aspects. We talk about having fun while getting things done, and that's a big part of who we are. So a culture focused around respecting people, seeing people, being transparent, owning up to mistakes, listening and acknowledging on an ongoing basis, I think has worked really well for us. Now, are we perfect? Have we gotten this figured out? Absolutely not. But I believe that this is people understand. If you talk to our team members, they at least know that that's an intent from the organization, that we want to create an environment which is an awesome place to work, where each team member can see that they belong and they can grow in their careers by being at IS Outsource.
That's great. I'm curious, you mentioned, right, nobody's perfect, no organization is perfect. Are there areas that you're working on around kind of the team environment, team dynamic that you'd be willing to share?
Oh, yes, remote work, right? There was a time when everybody was in the building, and it's always easy to motivate people and align people when you can just walk up and talk to somebody or have a water cooler conversation. But when you have a team that's dispersed in various locations and um, a lot of people working from home, which is awesome, right? I love that flexibility that people have today in a hybrid work environment. But it also causes challenges around team culture because you don't get to see the people. You don't get to, outside of the small window that we are peering into, you don't get to see body language. You don't get to shake hands. You don't get to high five people and thank them for a job well done. So I think our focus, especially this year, has been to enhance the remote worker experience where they feel part of the team. Whether somebody's sitting with me in headquarters in the same building or somebody sitting in Florida out of their home, how do they feel the same level of connectedness, the same level of being part of the mission, vision, values of the company? It's a tough one, Natalie. We are trying different things, but yeah, there's still a lot more to learn.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting when you have an office and some are remote is different than when a whole company is remote, and really thinking about what are those meeting cadences? What is a way to make sure everyone feels included, even if they're not the ones that heard, the water cooler talk, et cetera. And I know for our company, that's something that we've really worked on, is having kind of the structures in place, but also encouraging some of those more kind of ad hoc opportunities for team members to collaborate in ways outside of maybe their normal day to day, or get to see the personal side of someone in a way that doesn't happen as easily when you're all remote.
Yeah, you're right. In fact, I didn't think of it that way. When you're all remote, it's one way of building culture. When you're all in the office, it's one way of building culture. I'll give you an example, right? Next month we're moving to a new headquarters office building. It's a fantastic building. It has a lot of modern amenities. We talk about that all the time. And yet I'm thinking in my mind as I'm talking about it, hey, the people who are sitting in different states outside of headquarters, who are working out of their home, where their cities doesn't have a home office, how does this land with them? We are we too centric on building facilities around the 3 or 4 big locations that we're in? Now we need to do that to offer the best experience for people in those locations, but at the same time we've got to be super mindful of those people who don't have a home office. I mean, an office in their hometown. So yeah, it has its own challenges, and that's something that I constantly listen to other leaders trying to figure out how they do it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm interested because I know you've grown both organically as well as through some M&A. Do you think about kind of the team kind of environment and culture differently, and kind of offices or organizations you've acquired versus what's kind of grown organically?
Well, the most of the growth has been through organic means. I think the last acquisition we would have done, and I don't even know, it could have been like 20 years back. So M&A is part of our strategy going forward, but we've not acquired companies in the last many, many years. So all of our growth has been organic, which means the challenges are one dimensional, not multidimensional. When you're trying to take in another culture, another company, and bolt it on and try to merge two cultures together, we have not seen that aspect of culture transformation yet. But I'm sure we'll get into that situation in a year or two.
Yeah, yeah. It certainly brings new challenges and new considerations. It sounds like you will have a great foundation to build from.
That's the hope.
Yeah. So Naveen, I'd love to ask, more specifically about you. What's the biggest change that you've driven in an organization, whether currently or previously in your career?
So, Natalie, I believe in culture change as the biggest change a leader can bring to an organization, and we've talked about that quite a bit. But the reason why I believe that is earlier in my career, I got an opportunity to go to an executive leadership class at Berkeley, where CXOs from different parts of the world came together. It was a 1 week workshop where the entire focus of the conversation was culture. Now, till that point in my career, I was taught about strategy making a difference to a company and how you got to hone in on a strategy and execute on a strategy. And that was the the thing that was driving me towards being a better leader is being a visionary and having a strategy that is unbeatable. That conference, that learning environment changed the way I thought about competitive advantages in a business. Because what I learned through various examples of companies, big, small, massive, that survived and thrived and became leaders just by having a different culture, a unique culture, and how culture became a competitive advantage for those businesses, and how similar large companies that were had a strong strategy and amazing leadership team was doing really well in the stock market did not have a unique strategy around culture, that over a period of time they became obsolete and the companies ceased to exist and they got acquired and lost their identity. So I I have learned over the years that the biggest thing I can do for my business, a business that I lead, is to drive cultural change. And a culture change again that focuses on the client and focuses on the team and having clarity in strategy. And I believe that is possible. It's a win-win-win situation.
Yeah. I'm curious, are there ways that you kind of measure the impact of, cultural change? Because I could see that it feels a bit squishy if, year one you do this, year two, how do you measure or know if what you're doing is working to drive that change?
Well, that's a fantastic question. I ask myself all the time, how do I know this is working, right? There are two very simple ways of measuring if culture change is working. It's your client retention and your client feedback, which is why it's extremely important to have multiple listening channels for your clients, and having feedback come in through different points of contact from your clients, because they would tell us if culture change is working or not. Now, we can talk about being client centric all we want. We can talk about being trustworthy. We can talk about being results driven. We can talk about being excellent. But if our clients don't see that, then it's not working. So when I go in front of clients for, again, the partnership reviews, I put each value in front of them and I ask them, do you see us as excellent? Do you see us as trustworthy people? Have there times we've let you down by not communicating? Right? When we say client centric, this is what we expect you to feel on a day to day basis. Do you see that? And we ask those specific questions, and clients tell us they love having this conversation, right? So I know culture change works when clients echo the sentiments that we hope that they see. The other part of that is on the team side. If my team is growing, if my team is getting promoted, now last year we had 32 promotions in the company, and for a company of 100 people, that's a lot, right? I love seeing that, because what that means is people are thriving in an organization. They come in, they learn, they see a career growth opportunity, and they stay. So, client feedback, team retention, team growth, promotions, all of those things, I think, tell us if culture change is working. Now, like we do an NPS survey for clients, we do an NPS survey for our team members twice a year. It's called the employee NPS, right? I take that very seriously. And this time around, we got 75% of our team respond. And there were some nuggets of wisdom sitting there, right? Everything that we're doing well being acknowledged, but at the same time, perception of people on things that are not working, things that they feel leadership is not listening to. And for me, that feedback is gold, because then there's something for me to act on and then go back to the team and say, how do you feel now? So I think culture change can easily be measured by what your clients say and how long they stay with you, and what your team members say and how long they stay with you.
Yeah, the fact that you take both the qualitative feedback and then can aggregate that into quantitative and see how you're measuring against that is fantastic. And I can say that a 75% response rate for a company of your size is really impressive. It shows the level of engagement within the company, and then that people are comfortable speaking up, which to your point goes back to the healthy culture.
Yeah, I'm glad that it happened that way, because I believe that trust has to be earned,
Hmm.
right? Just because I have a fancy title, I can't demand people to trust me or respect me. I believe that I need to earn the trust of my team every single day. And when you say that, and when you own up to your mistakes and you own up to success, and you give credit to people when credit is due, people see that, right? And people are then happy to talk about things. Whereas 2 years back, That would not be the case because they're like, okay, if I say something, will that be retaliation? If I say something, would my manager not empower me to do what I need to do, or would my growth path get stunted? People now see that giving feedback is a way to make the company better, make their lives better, because feedback is heard, feedback is valued, and feedback will be acted on, and you build that kind of trust over a period of time. And it's easy to break that trust because you make one misstep, you go back four squares, and then you start rebuilding that trust all over again. So I talk to my leadership team all the time. A huge part of our jobs is earning the trust of our team members and our clients every single day, and not take that for granted.
I couldn't agree more. And I really like the way you articulated, right? Giving feedback is a way of making the company better. And when people truly, understand that and believe that, it gives additional motivation to speak openly and genuinely about the company.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Naveen, let's shift gears a bit. I'd like to talk, based on your current work, what are the biggest sort of challenges or priorities in the business that you personally are focused on this year?
Yeah. What keeps me up at night is not lowering our service standard even in a high growth situation. We are growing very fast, Natalie, and I'm pleased about that. That's a good problem to have when you're adding a client almost every week. A new logo gets added. Now you're talking about 50 to 70 new logos added every year. It's fantastic, but at the same time, with past experience, I know that if we are not careful about the client satisfaction levels and our client service levels, um, if the foundation is not strong enough, service levels will start dropping when you keep adding more and more new logos, right? So when I talked about culture, a team is greater than an individual, or systems greater than individual heroics. It's all with the focus that client service levels don't get dropped when the company is growing. A lot of businesses make the mistake of growing too fast while not building a foundation that's strong enough to, house those skyscrapers. So this year, our challenge and the opportunity we have is to keep building that foundation and make it stronger so our clients get the exact same level of service, whether we have 100 clients or 1,000 clients, and we treat each one of them with the way they need to be treated. So that's the challenge and an opportunity for 2024.
Well, it's an exciting one to work on. It's
Yeah,
a signal of a healthy, growing company. And I think to your point, right, thinking about growth is one thing, but then thinking about the scalability and how do you do that in a healthy way without losing any of what's made the company successful to this point.
exactly. It's also preserving that culture that you've built when you're going that fast, because again, that could be a casualty of fast growth if you're not intentional about it.
So, Naveen, I'd love to shift gears a bit now that we've heard some great insights and information from you. I'd love to hear a bit more about your background, your childhood, what's shaped your career to get you to where you are now.
Oh wow, you're taking me down memory lane. Um, so I was born in India, and my education again was in India. I did my computer science engineering, and my first job was a software developer. So that's where I started. And Natalie, if you ask me about my professional journey and what stands out to me and what shaped me for who I am today, I would attribute that to a lot of the managers I worked with. When I think back at the managers I worked with, I can easily remember the purpose driven leaders, people who wanted to make an impact, inspirational leaders, people who left a lasting impact on me in terms of how they just not were self centered and how they cared about their clients, their teams, their business, and uh, truly purpose driven. And those leaders shaped me to who I am today. And then I watched some leaders, people that I worked with, people who managed me who were very self centered. And yes, they were smart people and they did a great job with business growth and all that. But you know, when you see a dichotomy of leaders where some are these purpose driven leaders and the impact that they can make on the world they live in, on the other hand, some self centered leaders who are great, who are awesome, who drive transformation, but at the same time do not leave a great legacy behind. You tend to pick up the best from the ones that you worked with, right? So I think it's the people that I worked with that have defined my career journey. And if you think about my style of leadership today, I talked about being authentic, being a purpose-driven leader, servant leadership. All of that comes from those experiences, learning from people that I worked with.
I love that. And you're now taking me down memory lane a bit, thinking of some of the managers that I've had over my career. Been a while since I've had a manager since I started, Magnitude 12 years ago, but I know exactly what you're describing, right? There's some that um, really are a bit more self-interested, and others that like that servant leadership style that you talked about, that you can tell they really care about you. They're listening. They're looking out for you in kind of the context of the broader organization. So I've had similar experiences in kind of the impact that's had.
Yeah, I write articles quite a bit. And one of my first articles as CEO, I believe, my 90 days as CEO, I said the first learning was it's not about you. This is not about Naveen. This is about a business. This is about our people. This is about our clients. When I make it about me, it defeats the whole purpose why I'm CEO. And Natalie, I've worked with managers who've taken interest in developing me, right? Seeing the true potential in me and challenging me and making me who I am. And a lot of times managers don't intentionally do that. So even yesterday in an all hands meeting, I was talking to our managers and challenging them to do the same. Now we talk about the level 5 leadership in Jim Collins's The Good to Great book. And even yesterday we were talking about all the traits that a level 5 leader should have, starting with humility, right? Starting with all those different aspects that are so easy to read and understand, but very hard to live by. So yeah, managers can make careers or break careers. So we have to be good leaders, and that's a challenge I've taken on myself, and a challenge I put in front of all the people I manage and I lead.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it is really the mix of the hard skills become the table stakes, and then the soft skills are where some of the magic happens.
Absolutely, well said.
Yeah. So I know you've touched a little bit on IS Outsource at the start of the call, but tell me a little bit more about what IS Outsource does, and in the context of transformation, what are the kinds of transformations that you're helping your clients through?
Yeah, so IS Outsource is a modern technology consulting company, like we've talked about. And we've elevated our game from just being break fix IT service providers to providing services like fractional CIOs and fractional chief information security officers. And we provide, so I think about any small and medium business as needing 5 things to grow. They need to have ways to scale their business seamlessly without spending a lot of money. They need to be secure. In a world where cybersecurity is such a big thing in every business, data security and information security and system security and all those pieces. So security is the second big thing. Collaboration in a world where there's remote work happening and your team is sitting in so many different locations. How do we enable our clients to collaborate well within their team and with their clients? Productivity apps. Again, in remote work, what could be a big casualty is productivity of a team member. How do we have systems in place that enhance productivity of workers? And last but not the least, business insights. Every business has a lot of data, and yet they don't know what to do with the data. They don't know how to get insights from the data. And a typical small and medium business does not want to invest in building a large data warehouse and things like that. So now coming back to IS Outsource, our mission is to simplify, save, and protect. Simplify our clients' IT infrastructure, save them money, or rather get more value for the money they spend in technology, and keep them protected from cyber attacks, right? And we do that in this 5 pronged way of delivering service, whether it's by enabling their productivity or collaboration or helping them scale or helping them stay secure or getting data insights out of them. Now, where we are different is if you see our tagline, we say where IT means business. A lot of tech companies, services companies, Natalie, make the mistake of making it all about technology. Something's cool, you got to do it. Something's fancy, you got to adopt it. Early adopters. Well, all that makes sense. I'm a technology guy myself. If technology doesn't mean anything to the business or move the needle for a business, whether it's top line, bottom line, or a risk factor, that technology has no business being in that business, right? So we at IS Outsource, we say we have a tech heart but a business mind. We are tech guys at heart, but everything we do has a business mind because we want to help our clients be successful. So that's what we do in a nutshell.
That's a great way of describing it. I really liked the tech heart with the business mind. It reminds me of, where we're advising a lot of our clients, right? Taking the right blend of the latest and greatest with what's happening in marketing, because that's, of course, an industry and a discipline that's been very infused with technology, with tried and true, right? So not jumping from one tool or platform to the next, but really looking at how do you use that? How does that support your strategy, your growth, your processes, and making sure that everything kind of fits together in the right way.
Yeah, and thank you and your team for helping us even get there, right? That messaging in terms of translating what we do well into language that can be easily understood. I've enjoyed that partnership with your team.
Yeah. Well, we've enjoyed working with you, and it's great when we have a client with so much to work with like you do.
That's great.
So, Naveen, I'd love to ask a question before we wrap up. And that is, what advice would you give your younger self in your first ever leadership role?
Well, someone told me a few years back that a leader should have the heart of a lion, the skin of a rhino, and the soul of an angel. And I was like, what? Explain. They said a leader should have heart of a lion. What that means is brave enough to make tough decisions. Skin of a rhino, which is as a leader, you're going to be criticized. People are going to throw stones at you, throw darts at you. You can't let that get inside of you and poke you and make it painful. You got to let those darts bounce off you. So the skin of a rhino and the soul of an angel, because you got to be human enough to be empathetic, see the needs of people, know that people hurt, and work within that construct of empowering people while standing shoulder to shoulder with them and sharing in their pain, in their ups and downs. So I would tell my younger self that because if leaders learn this early in their career, that that the heart of a lion, the soul of an angel, and the skin of a rhino, I think we can all be better leaders. The other thing I would tell myself is celebrate those small wins along the way. The wins don't have to be big for you to have fun. Uh, Life happens, and sometimes you get so busy that you don't notice all these things that happen along the way. Stop and smell the roses. Celebrate those small wins because I think that will make you a better person.
I love that. And I think that applies both to business and to personal life, right? It's really easy, especially when you're wired towards achievement, to say, okay, what's next?
Yeah,
But stopping and really appreciating what you have, what you've accomplished, what your team has accomplished, your kids, right? Anywhere you look in life, we need all the reasons we can to celebrate, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
You just celebrate the people that you work with, right? You take them for granted quite a bit. Like you said, you come in and you just get busy with work, and then you get out and you look forward to the next day, the next big decision, the next big client acquisition. And a lot of times you don't stop to celebrate people who make you who you are. And that's your team members. Well, that's also your family, your friends. There are so many people that come in to our lives that make us who we are. And stopping to say thank you and living a life of gratitude and purpose, I think goes a long way in living a fulfilled life.
Couldn't agree more. And maybe that's an action item for all of us. Let's go after this podcast and tell someone that we appreciate them that maybe hasn't heard it in a while.
That's a good one.
Great. So, Naveen, before we sign off, can you let our audience know where they can reach you?
Yes, I have a personal website. It's www.naveenrajkumar.com. Or you can reach me on LinkedIn. You can find me, Naveen Rajkumar, CEO at IS Outsources. I would love to hear from our listeners because there's so much I can learn from people. I am who I am because I also learn, listen, and I would love to connect with a lot more people from whom I can learn. So thank you, Natalie. Appreciate it. This was a
Thank you.
great conversation. I enjoyed talking to you. Some great questions along the way that made me pause and think. This was awesome.
Great. Thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation as well. I know the audience has learned a lot from this. I know I have. So to our listeners, thank you everyone for listening. And sharing these types of insights and information with our peers is how we all get better. So reach out to Naveen, reach out to me, take these insights and share with others in your network. And this has been another fantastic episode of Shift and Thrive. We'll see you all next time. That's a wrap for this week's episode. For show notes and more, visit shiftandthrivepodcast.com. A special thank you to our sponsor, Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service marketing agency to help B2B companies fuel their growth. For more information on Magnitude and to get your complimentary transformation readiness assessment, visit magnitudeconsulting.com/getready. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.